It's Friday, January 9th, and today's supposed to be the climax of our multi-day severe weather event, and this is going to bring some big-time severe weather. We have a really large marginal risk, which spans from the Gulf all the way up into the probably central Kentucky, then a different slight risk, which is more in the southeast. Then, of course, we have a additional thunderstorm risk, which expands a little bit more further out than that. Now, this is going to be all hazards, mostly going to be a wind threat, though, potentially seeing some widespread 60 to 70 mile an hour gusts. Not really that much hail. Our hail is going to be more concentrated in the southeast. And then the big talk is this slight tornado threat, specifically in this corridor from Louisiana to probably southern Mississippi and far western Alabama. But then, of course, we have a general 2% tornado risk, which expands out a little bit further than that. And we're going to start to see the main cells from our big line start to develop around probably very, very late tomorrow, close to midnight. And they are going to already almost mature probably a couple of hours before sunrise today. I think by this point, the low level sunrise jet is already going to be kicking. And with help from that and probably some frontal activity and some big forcing from our jet stream, these storms will probably already be capable of producing severe weather. And I wouldn't even rule out a tornado at this time. Now, once that low level jet dies down, it looks like these storms will probably get really linear. And at this point, we're already seeing storms capable of severe gusts. Now, that is mostly going to be in this more southern quadrant right here. Everything north of that is going to have some really solid shear parameters, but not much instability. Then also our moisture starts to deplete the more north we go as well. But the main thing is that the instability, there's going to be a very sharp line of where there is instability and where there isn't. And that's really going to decide where our storms are going to be strongest. So pretty much from sunrise all the way to about lunchtime, this line will be capable of producing some damaging winds and a couple of spin up tornadoes. Now, this threat is going to ramp up even more as we go into the afternoon because we're going to start to see a lot of these little blips from advection in multiple lines of confluence. We can kind of see where the winds get really strong. That's just a sign of advection and confluence. And of course, on top of that, we can see a lot of cells. Now, these cells could have water spouts that could come onshore, but the main thing is that when they get closer to that line, they could strengthen. And then this is going to be really the best environment momentarily until a little later. But the main thing here is that these storms look, it kind of could be a messy mode. Our biggest thing is that we want to see discrete to semi-discrete cells. And right now it's kind of not looking like that. The confluence band is almost turning into a line of storms of its own, I guess. And this would mean that this would be more of a damaging wind threat. I still think when these run into our main line, though, that's when that tornado threat could ramp up. And then also we're going to see more of a damaging wind threat with these. I think our hail threat's going to be pretty small because everything's going to be linear, but we do see something a little odd as we get a couple of hours before sunset in the afternoon. And that's going to be this line of a couple of cells in between Houston and the DFW area right along this front. And arguably, these are going to be the most potential for making severe weather that we've had all day. The environment's going to be really solid, instability-wise, moisture-wise, and our shear is going to be good enough, and these storms are going to be surface-based. So definitely the threat of all hazards with these, and these could be pretty strong. I wouldn't be surprised to even see some decent size hail out of these, but of course, these are going to conglomerate into one cluster sooner or later, probably before sunset, and then they're going to turn into kind of a line of their own behind our main line along our cold front, which would just produce some damaging winds as we go into the night as well. And as we go into the night, I think we'll see one more kick out of these storms when the low jet kicks in. But at this point, it's mostly just going to be a damaging wind threat. Maybe some spin up tornadoes will still be possible, but that's really only going to be in the farthest south quadrant of this area and in kind of including the stronger cluster back here. But everything else is mostly just going to be maybe a couple of strong damaging gusts, but that tornado threat is really only going to be in the more southern portions of our risk. But of course, technically our severe risk does span all the way up into Kentucky. So what's going on up here? Why are we not expecting to see nearly as much severe weather up here? And this line, it looks way more messy and there's just not going to be much instability to work with. So we're still going to have decent forcing, decent shear, and even decent moisture. It's not going to be nearly as good as what we have further down south, but still decent stuff that will probably yield some strong gusts. Maybe we could even get a couple of strong clusters producing severe gusts, but I think that's going to be a lot more widespread, and the probability of that is only going to increase the more south you go. And on top of all of these severe hazards, our damaging winds, tornadoes, and hail, we are expecting to see a pretty big flood threat with these, because our front, I don't know if you saw, is almost going to stall. These lines of storms are almost going to train track up right through this slight risk area right here. In this area, we could see widespread 2 to 4 inches of rain, with maybe some isolated areas seeing up to 6 inches. Then in this green shaded area, just a general threat for 1 to 2 inches of rain, not as serious. Definitely want to be aware though if you are in this yellow shaded area. And I've been talking a lot about the jet stream this video and how it's going to play a role in our outbreak or potential outbreak today. And the main thing is that we're not going to see the highest potential until the afternoon, because that's when our jet stream is really going to start to eject and kick. And that's when we're going to get our strongest levels of forcing and probably strongest advection from the Gulf as well. That's going to be why we're going to start to see quite a bit more cells coming on shore during that time, and that highest potential for severe weather, even though it's definitely going to still be possible in the morning hours with kind of this glancing blow from our jet stream up here. We're going to get a secondary ejection, if you will, and that will kind of play a role in that as well. So we've definitely talked loads about our main risk area for severe weather, but there are a couple more areas which are going to receive some precipitation and potentially some strong weather. One is going to be up here in the northeast, closer to our low pressure center, and also further up on this cold front. You're still going to get a line of storms. It just won't be as strong. And then we also have another one with another low pressure system, which is going to kind of be the main causer for this cold front. Closer to that, we're definitely going to get some precipitation, maybe strong gust with that as well, and just general thunderstorm activity, but nothing severe is expected to be associated with that. And we are definitely going to still be seeing some snow across the US today. It just looks like it's mostly going to be further up north, kind of coming down with our jet stream as well, like this, just leading to some cooler temperatures. And in some isolated areas, specifically where we're seeing that front push down, we're going to see a line up here through central Iowa, central to northern Wisconsin, and just in the higher elevations in the Rockies. So now we're going to do a deep dive into the ingredients in front of these storms. First, we're going to start with that cluster, which is expected to pop up kind of in between Houston and the DFW area. And this isn't really that bad of a thermodynamic profile. Definitely quite a bit of moisture. We see a little bit of a inverted V. These cloud bases are definitely going to be close enough to the ground. These storms are going to be surface based. Even seeing a teensy bit of dry air loft helping to maybe add to that damaging wind threat, although it's probably going to be negligible. And then also definitely helping with the lift of these storms. Also helping with the lift of these storms is going to be a pretty positive lapse rate all the way up, and also some instability, and also some 3 Cape that's going to help with our tornado risk. And these shear parameters are going to be pretty solid on the lower levels. And then also the bulk shear is just going to be off the charts, definitely leading to a potential for some hail and some very organized storms with that cluster. And then this is more in that main risk area, that Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama area. And once again, not a bad thermodynamic profile, definitely more dry air loft. So that's going to help to add to that threat for some damaging winds a little bit more. We're seeing even better shear here, and also still really good bulk shear. These storms are going to be surface based, maybe a little bit of wind veering as well. Then once again, we're going to see pretty solid instability for these thunderstorms, and definitely a lot of 3 Cape, over 100. That's definitely going to help with these storms' abilities to produce tornadoes. And this is once again in the more southern quadrant of our risk. Once again, the more north you go, the shear parameters will stay the same, if not increase in favorability, but this thermodynamic profile will completely break down and will be almost entirely saturated all the way up, and you will just see the instability kind of disappear. And the very last thing is the temperatures that are going to be brought by this, because a lot of these storms are going to be brought by a cold front. So of course, behind that cold front, we're going to have a lot cooler air coming down, and we're not really going to see the big invasion of cool air until probably Sunday. We'll definitely see it march a little bit more south as we go into tomorrow on Saturday. But once we reach Sunday, that's when it's really going to dig deep and reach maybe even the Florida panhandle. And we'll start to see those really cold temperatures creep in up into the Midwest, probably maybe in the negative single digits in negative teens in the far northern areas like Minnesota.